So hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm bringing you an exciting experimental crossover video with Black Clover. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on what if Naruto was the vice captain of the Crimson Lions and ended up in a harem with Mereoleona Vermilion and Black Clover. Don't forget to like and subscribe to help the YouTube algorithm spread this video to more viewers. Let me warn you guys, this fanfic contains strong lemon, so make sure to put on your headset and enjoy the video without any interruptions. Now let's start the story. Chapter 1, Vice Captain Naruto, Crimson Lion Base. At the Crimson Lion Base, there was a blonde-haired man and a vermilion-colored-haired woman who were destroying everything around them as they sparred. The woman's name is Mereoleona Vermilion, a noble from the Clover Kingdom. The man she was sparring with is Naruto Uzumaki, a pleasant who has risen to the rank of Magic Knight Vice Captain through his determination and powerful magic. As the fight intensified, Mereoleona used her fire-based magic and Naruto evading with his illusion magic mixed with reinforcement magic. The vermilion-haired woman sent a barrage of punches covered in hellfire after the blonde man, but he blocked them with his katana, which he had reinforced with his magic to withstand her flames. The two had collided, creating an explosion that kicked up dust everywhere. Not long after, Mereoleona was pursuing the blonde man, her fist raised to strike. When she did, her punch went right through him, revealing he was an illusion. Suddenly, she felt a sharp pain behind her head and darkness took her. Naruto looked down on Mereoleona's unconscious body and shook his head. He could never understand her. She always came here to challenge him to a duel that she knew she couldn't win. Every time they fought, he always came out on top, but he supposed the fierce, strong-headed woman couldn't take the fact that there was someone she couldn't beat. Naruto looked around him at the destruction they had caused inside. The captain would not be happy about this. The other squad members, who were watching the battle, which was a weekly occurrence by now, could see why Naruto was the vice captain, even if he wasn't a noble. The blonde was respected by his squad, and most of the people of the Clover Kingdom, for his strength and conviction. While there were some snobbish nobles who still hated him, the blonde didn't let that get to him. However, he did keep his guard up in case they tried something stupid. The blonde vice captain knelt down and picked up the woman in a bridal carry, something he knew she would appreciate if she was conscious, and carried her to the captain's office, the captain who was also her brother. On the way to the captain's office, Naruto couldn't help but reminisce about how he got into this position. He remembered dying a hero in his past life, only to wake up as a baby in an orphanage without any chakra, but with magic. When he was 13 years old, he gained a 4-leaf grimoire with the ability to use illusion magic that could fool the 5 senses. About a year after he was recruited to join the Crimson Lions, he was appointed as the vice captain by Fugolian Vermilion. He worked hard and moved through the ranks, becoming vice captain by the age of 20. At this point, Mereoleona came by and stated that he looked too weak to be her brother's vice captain, and challenged him to a match with all the squad members watching. The match was intense, but she ultimately lost the duel, much to her shame and her brother's amusement. From that day onward, she has been coming to their base to challenge him every week and losing everything. Fugolian told him that his sister had put herself through intense training before challenging him, but each time he defeated her faster and faster, making her become frustrated, as she thought he was holding back his strength and only using enough power to barely beat her. Naruto glanced down at the stubborn woman and he couldn't help but sigh in frustration. She wasn't bad looking, she had nice big firm watermelons, a plump ass, and she had feminine curves. The only problem was she was like an untamed lioness. She would maim any man who got too close to her, which was the reason she was still single at the age of 27. Most nobles married early, but there weren't any men willing to approach this violent woman, let alone propose to her. His captain sometimes jokes that he should make her his wife, but he ignores him when he says that because he can't imagine what being married to Mereoleona Vermilion would be like, she would more than likely challenge him every day to a duel, and there is also the noble and peasant thing, so he doesn't even entertain the idea. Captain's office. Naruto entered the office without knocking and placed the still unconscious Mereoleona on the couch by the side of the office. Captain Fugolian didn't even look up. He was used to his sister's and vice captain's antics. The blonde dropped himself into the chair in front of the captain's desk as he was going over some paperwork. Naruto waited for his captain to look up, but he kept going over more paperwork. "Captain, I think I'm going to take a mission," the blonde stated as he figured if he took a long mission, he would be able to get away from Mereoleona for at least a few weeks. "Oh, you're trying to run away from your girlfriend," he teased with a smile. Finally, he looked up. "She is going to be heartbroken when she wakes up, and you're gone for a week without telling her anything." "Sigh, Captain," the blonde man said. "She is not my girlfriend. She would rather set me on fire than date me, and that isn't even mentioning she is a noble, and I am a peasant," the blonde man replied as he continued having their conversation with his captain, but he kept teasing him about it. "I think you are underestimating her." Ugolian said as he glanced at his sister. She will not let anyone decide who she can or cannot be with. That is part of the reason she is single now. If you say so, Naruto replied absent-mindedly as he found a mission on his captain's desk about defending the Clover Kingdom borders from an attack by the Diamond Kingdom that should take him away for weeks, if not months, and it seemed like a simple enough mission. 5 months later, Wizard King's office. Naruto sighed to himself. The simple mission turned out to be a full secret invasion set up by the Diamond Kingdom as they were testing the defenses of the Clover Kingdom. The blonde managed to single-handedly repel the invading forces by trapping their strongest fighters in powerful illusions, making them see their alliance as their enemies. While he was cloaked in an illusion of invisibility, he attacked the Diamond Kingdom soldiers, who were in a panic due to their strongest soldiers attacking them. He slaughtered thousands of people that day, causing the Diamond Kingdom to retreat. He later found out that they had started calling him the demon in the Diamond Kingdom. In the Clover Kingdom, however, they called him the demonic blade of illusion. Both names fit, considering everything. Right now, he was standing in front of the 28th Wizard King Julius Navachrono, who was congratulating him on a job well done, but the blonde just wanted to go home and rest. He tuned most of what the Wizard King set out until he heard him say they would be holding a banquet in his honor. The blonde sighed, knowing there was nothing he could say or do to stop the Wizard King from throwing the banquet. He bowed slightly and excused himself before returning to the Crimson Lion base. Crimson Lion's base. Funny enough, Mereoleona was the first one to greet him with her fist, which he dodged by creating an illusion of himself and slipping away to the captain's office. He heard an explosion and a scream of fury, making him chuckle as Mereoleona must have finally destroyed his illusion, as he was finally in front of his captain. The blonde recapped briefly what had transpired before Mereoleona came flying in, cursing the blonde male, who smirked back at her. Before she could do anything, her brother stopped her as she listened in on what the blonde had done during the mission. When Naruto was done, his captain told him to get some rest. Before the blonde left, he informed his captain that the Wizard King would be holding a banquet in his honor. Ugolian nodded and waved the blonde off before talking with his sister in private. The blonde left to go to his private room and dropped down onto his bed, sleep taking him. Ugolian's office. Ugolian was looking at his sister in amusement, as he knew she had some feelings for his younger blonde vice captain even if she didn't acknowledge it herself. Their parents even started to plan a wedding for the vermilion-haired woman, much to her annoyance. So when is the wedding? Our parents are excited to finally have some grandchildren, Ugolian said with a smile, getting a fireball thrown at him, but he managed to dodge it by tilting his head to the side. Will you shut up about that? It's your fault our parents are pressuring me to get married, the brunette woman replied. Their parents wanted her to bring the younger blonde home. They don't care if he isn't a noble. To them, anyone who can tame their wild daughter can have her. Not to mention, they want grandchildren to spoil badly. Well, it is a good thing you don't have feelings for the blonde, because I'm sure there will be tons of ladies at the banquet who are going to try to tie him to their families, the captain of the Crimson Lion stated, knowing the only reason the blonde didn't have a harem of noble ladies was because he was born a peasant. But after his show of magical power, most of the royals would want to bind him into their families, since magic power tends to be passed down from parents to children. Him and his siblings were good examples. Mereoleona remained silent before scowling and leaving her brother's office, causing him to chuckle at her reaction. He watched as her retreating figure disappeared from view, shaking his head. She was a powerful magic knight, but she was lacking in other areas, such as being a woman. The captain of the Crimson Lions hoped that she and the blonde would get together. While he was younger than her, it wasn't much of an issue because he knew the blonde didn't mind dating older women. He had dated a few older women in taverns he visited every once in a while to blow off some steam. The blonde was quite the pervert and skirt chaser, but he was a strong and good man. His sister was a wild child, even at a young age, and no man had ever managed to catch her attention, until the blonde, whom she never could win a fight against. Sighing, the captain looked at his desk that was filled with requests to meet the blonde from the noble houses. They want him to court their daughters, or female relatives. He hopes his sister will start wising up because the blonde is going to be surrounded by a lot of women very soon. Chapter 2. Taming the Vermilion Lioness. This chapter had Lemon. Wizard King Palace. On the night of the banquet honoring Naruto's victory over the Diamond Kingdom, Naruto was dressed in royal attire by the Wizard King's personal attendants at the order of the Wizard King himself. The blonde was wearing white and blue attire with a cape, much to the blonde's annoyance. He looked himself over in a mirror and had to admit he looked good. The blonde spoke to Julius, and he said that there were a lot of noble families after his seed to secure their family's future. The blonde responded with a death look, but Julius reminded him that while he was born a peasant, he had some of the most powerful magical energy in the world. That alone made him highly valuable. Now, he is a war hero who defeated an entire army by himself. He would be surprised if any nobles would pay him to impregnate their female relatives. The blonde illusionist didn't know what to say to any of that, but simply sighed and entered the massive room where the banquet was being held, accompanied by Julius, who had announced their arrival. The night was a blur for the blonde. He remembered talking to his captain briefly before some noblemen attempted to pair up their female relatives with him, which he politely declined. Julius presented the blonde with a medal, as the other magical knights, nobles, and everyone else applauded. The blonde found himself at the bar and ordered a strong drink. As the night went on, he drank more and more until he woke up the next day in bed with a splitting headache. The next day. The blonde woke up the next morning with a splitting headache. The blonde tried to get up but realized he couldn't because there was a weight on his chest. He looked down and saw the sleeping face of Mereoleona Vermilion. To his horror, she was bare-skinned. The blonde then became more awake and realized his morning wood was in something hot, wet, and tight. As he moved, Mereoleona murmured on top of him. From the bloodstains on the sheets, it appeared he had taken her virginity. The blonde began to panic before he tried to remember what had happened the night before. Flashback, warning lemon ahead. The blonde remembered sitting by the bar, drinking a beer, as Mereoleona approached him in her usual attire of pants and a shirt. He ignored her because she was the reason he was in this mess in the first place, but she didn't like that, so she threw a punch at him, which he dodged and performed a backflip out of the window onto the street below. As he ran away, he created multiple illusions to confuse her, deciding it would be best to simply go home. As he drunkenly swayed his way home, he saw the vermilion-haired woman waiting for him. She must have seen through his plan and come straight there. It looked like she was in a fighting mood, as she just launched her hellfire at him as soon as he was in range. Naruto, still drunk, was able to dodge and use his magic to deflect her attacks. She kept on attacking without stopping, making the blonde even more annoyed as he didn't understand what her problem was. She was the reason he tried to get away from this place, but now she is attacking him for no reason. The blonde was fed up with the woman's crap, attacked with his magic katana, hitting her in the stomach with the flat side of it. He threw her through some trees, and she got back up with a grin as her flames grew larger. The blonde decided to end the fight before it got any further, and called upon one of his strongest abilities that his illusion magic granted him. It was called Karma, an illusion that caused the enemy to attack themselves, but they thought they were attacking the enemy. Naruto activated Karma and watched as Mereoleona basically beat the living shit out of herself, as she lay bloody and broken on the ground. The blonde felt kind of guilty, as he watched her struggle to her feet and fall back down. The blonde sighed, as he knew he had caused this. He lifted her up in his arms, and slung her over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes, ignoring the weak struggle she tried to give. The blonde, still very much drunk, instead of bringing her to the medical facilities at the Crimson Lion base, brought her to his room. He threw her onto his bed, where she landed on her back with her legs spread out. He realized she was basically bare-skinned since she had destroyed all her clothes during her attack. Naruto gave her a look, and he had to say she looked naughty stuffy bare-skinned on his bed. Her watermelons were large and firm. She was muscular, but still feminine with body fat in all the right places, and her thighs were slightly open showing off her pink slit, which he knew no man had ever dared to touch before. The blonde felt himself starting to harden, but shook his head. He brought her here to heal her, not to fuck her. The blonde went to get some warm water, some healing ointment, and bandages. Naruto drunkenly cleaned, rubbed on some healing ointment, and wrapped bandages around Mereoleona's wounds. The said woman was blushing, as the blonde touched her everywhere, causing her to feel embarrassment and arousal. Mereoleona felt anger towards herself, and the blonde for making her feel that way. She lashed out by hitting Naruto in the face, causing his head to snap back. Naruto was shocked when she hit him after he had just healed her. Now feeling furious, he backhanded the vermilion-haired woman back as her head whipped back, causing Mereoleona to turn her head back to the blonde slowly with a bloodthirsty grin and jumped on the blonde, claiming his lips with her own. Naruto flees the base because he basically gets naughty with his captain's violent sister, who he thinks will want to kill him when she wakes up. He thinks she was drunk when she slept with him, but she didn't drink it all that night. Flashback end. As the blonde went through his memories of the night, he was both aroused and horrified. He quickly got out of bed and got dressed, then fled the base. He wouldn't be seen for several years. Chapter 3. Cubs of the Crownless Lioness, Spade Kingdom. "Stop right there, you traitor!" yelled a dark-haired man with 2 horns on his head, marking him as a devil host with flames circling him. "You won't get away with this, you bastard! We will kill you for playing with Lady Vanika's heart!" shouted a thin, white-haired man with 4 horns on his head and a black smoke surrounding his body. The 2 Shadow Kingdom magicians were in hot pursuit of a blonde-haired man who was the lover of Vanika Zograti's, but they found him stealing some information from her office and alerted everyone present. The fleeting blonde turned around and lift his hand, and a blast of ice consumed the two men, freezing them solid. I got sloppy and discovered. Well, I'd better tell Knack Faust I got caught, Naruto said, depressed, but the information he came across was worth it. He came across information on the missing Zograti's sibling, Lucius Zogratis, who was the host of Astaroth, the Time Devil. He had some suspicions that the devil is somehow connected to the Wizard King, Julius Navachrono. He didn't want to believe it, but in this world, the Wizard King is the only other being with time magic. The blonde sighed as he got ready to meet up with Nacht. The shadow magic user didn't really like him much because the blonde had used his illusion magic to trick him into summoning some devils for him to bind to himself. The twin devil sisters Nahama and Lilith, who use fire and ice magic, had been defeated and bound by him. He had made them submit to him in a way even Nacht was surprised, especially since they were some of the highest-ranking devils. The blonde had mastered the sisters' magic beyond even what they were capable of doing with their magic. He even combined his magic and theirs to create a power they said would enable him to face any devil and win. The blonde went over the information he found in his head. He found that Lucius Zogratis possessed soul magic, and he had been born with 2 souls. He suspected the elder Zogratis sideling was using Julius as a cover, while Lucius hid deep within him. The blonde hoped that wasn't the case, but his gut was telling him it was. The blonde then just focused on getting to Nacht. Nacht's secret base, Spade Kingdom. Nacht's base was in an old noble family house that had been destroyed by the Zogratis sidelings when they took over the kingdom. Naruto told him everything he had discovered, but Nacht remained unconvinced. He couldn't believe the Wizard King could be the missing Zogratis sideling. The Shadow Mage had to admit that everything the blonde said to him made sense, but that would mean the Clover Kingdom was in real trouble, and he didn't know how he could avert it. He then focused on the blonde. He did really like him since he made him summon demons for him, but he ended up binding them to the point where they were his loyal pets. He also didn't like how the blonde went about spying on the Spade Kingdom, basically seducing Vanica Zogratis and making her his bitch until the devil inside her ended up submitting to him. The blonde seemed to be a natural at binding and subjugating devils. He wouldn't be surprised if Vanica Zogratis turned on her siblings on the blonde's orders. It just showed how much he had complete control over her. Like right now, the high-class devil Lilith was massaging his feet, while Nahama massaged his shoulders. The control he has over the demons he hosts even reflects in their union. He remains mostly the same, just growing 9 horns on his head like a crown and gaining 2 gauntlets on his hands. The blonde was at this moment one of the most powerful beings in the world. He was sure they could easily kill off the Zogratis and their supporters, but refrained from doing so because that would spark a war with the Spade Kingdom, and the other surrounding kingdoms might join in. Well, since your cover is compromised, you will have to return to the Clover Kingdom, the Shadow Mage said with a wide grin, knowing the blonde was running away from a certain vermilion-haired woman who had 2 little surprises for him back home. The blonde looked ready to argue, but just slumped his shoulders when he realized Nacht had been right. He could make Vanica keep her mouth shut, but the news must have reached her siblings by now. He was happy he killed those SIMPs that exposed him, because he knew unless you were very powerful, you couldn't escape his ice magic. Yes, his ice magic, because he made his devils give him everything they had: body, mind, soul, and magic. They told him that if he had children, they could inherit his illusions, ice, fire, a combination of their magic, or something else entirely. The blonde thought of the Crimson Lions and sighed. He guessed it was time to face the music. He hoped his captain and his crazy sister didn't kill him. He left the base without a word and returned to the Clover Kingdom. Clover Kingdom, Wizard King's office. Naruto reported his findings to Julius, while keeping his suspicions to himself. As he spoke, he tried to find any out-of-place details about the Wizard King, but he could not. After finishing his report, Julius informed Naruto about a terrorist group called the Eye of the Midnight Sun that had attacked the Clover Kingdom. Apparently, their base had been discovered, and some of the other magical knights were tasked with eliminating them. He told him Mereoleona was the temporary captain of the Crimson Lions because her brother was attacked by the terrorists and is currently unconscious. Hearing that made the blonde furious that they dared attack his friend. The blonde demanded their location before jumping out the window and heading to the Gravito Rock Zone, where the terrorists were hiding out in a dungeon. The blonde made his way into the dungeon to find a familiar magical power that was fading fast. On his way there, he had defeated some people with pointed ears calling themselves elves, a long-dead race. Apparently, they had taken over the bodies of humans to reincarnate themselves. As he found Mereoleona, she was surrounded by 5 elves and on her last legs. The blonde didn't know if the reincarnation could be reversed, so he attacked with non-lethal force. He slammed 2 of the elves' heads into the ground, knocking them out, leaving only 3. They fired their spells at him. One painted a giant, one with snow, and the last with light. The blonde they attacked was an illusion though, as they discovered when he slammed the paint magic user to the ground. unconscious, and kicked the snow magic user into the wall. The last elf saw the situation, attacked with fire and light, making the blonde dodge before going on the attack. But finding the elves gone, he looked around to make sure they were gone before walking over to Mereoleona, who was barely conscious. As he got closer to her, 2 mages with the black bull symbol appeared by her side, making him raise an eyebrow. As he approached, they tensed. "Sigh, there's no need for that now. I am Naruto Uzumaki, the vice captain of the Crimson Lions." The blonde announced himself to them, making them relax slightly. He walked past them towards Mereoleona, who saw him throw a weak punch, which he caught and smiled as he realized she was the same violent woman. She fell unconscious, and he picked her up in bridal style, ordering the 2 Black Bull members to follow him. He asked their names. They were Asta and Zora. As they were retreating, Zora informed him of the location where they were regrouping. The blonde saw Nozel was shocked to see him with Mereoleona in his arms, and there were other royal knights around them. He leaned Mereoleona against a tree while using Ilia's booth on her and the other injured people to help them heal. After Mereoleona was fully healed, she remained unconscious, worrying the blonde. Nozel received a distress call from his squad, so he organized a convoy to transport all the royal knights back to the capital. House Vermilion. Nozel insisted the blonde vice-captain take Mereoleona home, but wouldn't elaborate why. However, he could see he had an almost amused expression on his face. As they walked inside the house, the Vermilion house, he was ushered inside by servants of the house. He was met by Mereoleona's parents and little brother Leopold, who were shocked to see him, as her mother held 2 twin girls in her arms. Each girl looked to be around 4 years old. They had the same vermilion-colored hair and blue eyes. The only difference between them was the length of their hair, as they both wore the same clothes. The 2 little girls must have noticed Mereoleona in his arms as they reached for her. Both twins shouted, "Mommy!" at the same time, startling Naruto. "Mommy! Mereoleona, who would be brave and stupid enough to get her pregnant?" the blonde asked dumbly, as he set down the unconscious woman on her family's expensive sofa. The daughters of Mereoleona were by her side, trying to wake her up, but to no avail. This made them both cry, until their grandmother arrived to comfort them, assuring them that their mother was simply exhausted and would wake up soon. She then hugged them both. "So who was dumb enough to knock her up?" the blonde asked his captain's father in a soft voice. The father only looked at the blonde as if he were an idiot before answering. "They are yours." "I didn't quite catch what you said," the blonde replied loudly as he laughed. "I thought I heard you say that I am the twins' father." The blonde, not believing what he had heard, stared at his friend's father in disbelief. Leopold was glaring at the blonde the whole time. The blonde took a closer look at the twins and realized they had his eyes, and the same facial structure as him. The twins must have heard the blonde's outburst because they turned their attention towards him before asking, "Are you our daddy?" The illusion mage, hearing the twin girls, who were a perfect fusion of Mereoleona, and himself call him daddy, made the blonde freeze up in shock before his eyes rolled back into his head, and he fainted on the spot. Chapter 4, Family. House Vermilion. Naruto was sitting in an armchair with 2 4-year-old girls hanging all over him, talking to him as if he had been in their lives from the start. Meanwhile, the blonde himself was still in shock. The girls' grandparents and Leopold were looking at him with dark amusement. Apparently, they were angry with him for leaving Mereoleona alone while getting her pregnant. The girls' names are Murafumi and Mitsumari Vermilion. The short-haired girl is Murafumi, and the long-haired girl is Mitsumari. Murafumi said, "Daddy, come play with us," while she sat on his shoulder. "No, please tell us a story about your adventures," Mitsumari insisted from his father's lap. Each time the twins called him daddy, the blonde would flinch from a mixture of shame, guilt, and shock. He was shocked that he had gotten the woman pregnant, but felt shame and guilt for leaving her to go through it all alone. The twins' grandmother said, "Kids, let your father have some time to collect his thoughts." She added, "I will go to the kitchen and get you something sweet." The twins jumped off the blonde with surprising dexterity for their age, but he guessed with who the mother was. That was to be expected. He sent the lady of the house a grateful look, but she stuck her nose up and turned her head as she ushered the twins away. The illusion magic knight stood beside Lord Vermilion, and neither spoke until Naruto asked, "So how is Captain Fugolian? I heard he was in a coma after getting attacked by a group called the Eye of the Midnight Sun." The head of the Vermilion house didn't respond immediately, making the blonde feel like he had said something he shouldn't have. "Fugolian is still unconscious, but he is strong. He will overcome this and come back stronger," he stated. "Yeah, my brother wouldn't let this keep him down." Leopold echoed his father's statement. "I don't doubt it. The captain has always been a powerful and strong-willed person," Naruto said with a smile, as he remembered the times he fought alongside the comatose captain. "I think it is best if I go," the blonde said, understandably hated by Mereoleona's parents and brother. He also felt an enormous magical power while he was asleep after hearing he had children with Mereoleona. He didn't faint, it was just sleep, he told himself unconvincingly. The blonde knew he would have to sort out the mess that this whole situation was in, but that would be for a later time, after the Clover Kingdom had dealt with the threat of the Midnight Sun. "So, are you going to run away again?" asked a rough feminine voice he recognized, making him sweat as he turned to see Mereoleona awake. The blonde was petrified because he thought she would be pissed that he got knocked up during a night of drunken passion and left her pregnant, only to appear years later. "Yeah, she's going to kill me," the blonde thought to himself as he braced himself for the beating he knew was coming. Instead, she walked past him and headed towards where he had heard the twins were with their grandmother. Lord Vermilion said, "Mereoleona has changed a lot since she became a mother. She has become more level-headed and kind. She is the strongest and most beautiful big sister anyone could ask for, and I am going to be keeping an eye on you, so don't try anything funny," Leopold stated while glaring at the blonde mage. The blonde held his hands up in surrender, as he admired Mereoleona's little brother's overprotective nature and wanting to cause any trouble. The two walked over to the kitchen where Lady Vermilion was feeding the twins with the food the servants had prepared. Meanwhile, Mereoleona held them in her arms, showing them she was okay. The twins must have noticed the three men, so they took Naruto's hand and led him over to their mother and grandmother. "So how have you been?" the blonde illusion mage asked awkwardly. "I was pregnant with your child, but I guess you wouldn't know that because you ran away," she answered with a frown. Naruto winced at her reply, but before he could speak, Murafumi spoke up. "Mommy, Daddy's back, so now you can get married, and we can be one big happy family." Mitsumari nodded her head. "Yeah, let's be a happy family with Mommy, Daddy, Grandma, Grandpa, and the rest of the family," she explained excitedly. "I don't know, maybe if your father wasn't such a coward, we would have been married a long time ago," Mereoleona stated, her resentment starting to show as the room got a little hotter. "Kids, I think it's time we give your parents the opportunity to talk. Please step out of the room now, and let them have their privacy," Lord Vermilion said, making everyone leave the room. Leopold tried to stay in the room, but Lady Vermilion took a hold of his right ear and pulled him out of the room, even as he shouted his protest. The blonde turned to Mereoleona and bowed deeply. "I apologize for taking advantage of you when you were drunk." The temporary leader of the Crimson Lions blinked in confusion before realization came to her, and she covered her face with her hands. "I can't believe I let an idiot like you get me pregnant." "Hey, what do you mean by that?" the blonde explained, but stepped back when Mereoleona glared at him before smirking at his reaction. "I am telling you that you are an idiot if you think you can take advantage of me," the fiery woman said. "If at any point I didn't want to do anything with you, I could have bitten your banana off and burned you to a crisp," she said sadistically. This made the blonde gulp in fear to the Hellfire user, but she continued with a smile. "That night, I didn't drink any alcohol because I wanted to be at my full strength to capture my prey." The blonde started to back away as she stalked towards him with a predatory smile on her lips. Naruto hit the wall as Mereoleona continued until the blonde was trapped between the wall and her watermelons pressing up against him. The blonde mage gulped before asking, "Who are you pursuing?" "I think we both know who my prey was, but it seems you were too stupid to figure it out," the lioness replied. Naruto had to admit Mereoleona had gotten a naughty stuffier since he last saw her. She had D-cup watermelons, a flat tummy, a plump ass, and thick thighs. She was the definition of a MILF, and he could feel her nipples pressing against his upper stomach through their clothing. The lioness pulled back. "As much fun as it is to mess with you, I think we should get back to destroying the enemies." The blonde was stunned because the Mereoleona he knew would have punched him with a flaming fist for looking at her the wrong way. Now she had a genuine reason to be angry with him. She just walked away. "Stop standing there like an idiot," she yelled. "Come say bye to your daughters." She smirked as the blonde flinched. She may not have attacked him physically, but she was not above reminding him of the daughters he unknowingly abandoned. She might not outright hate the blonde for taking her virginity and getting her pregnant, then leaving her without a word, because in the end, for all his power, he was an idiot when it came to the feelings of women. She was the same when it came to men. They would have a long conversation about this once the Midnight Sun were dealt with. She watched the blonde interact with his daughters. The girls seemed to be happy to finally meet their father. She had told them about him, and everything seemed good. She knew enough about him, as she didn't want to poison their minds against the blonde. The twin girls were talking excitedly with the blonde, squealing and chattering happily as they went over whatever random topics came to mind. They would then ask him about his travels, to which he would tell them stories in a child-friendly manner. The lioness's parents and brother were still angry at the blonde for his disappearing act, but they didn't interfere with his bonding time with his cubs. When the 3 Crimson Lion members were in the courtyard, Getting ready to leave, they felt a familiar magical power. Everyone turned to the entrance of the Vermilion Mansion to see Fugolian awake with a salamander spirit on his shoulder, and his missing arm was replaced by one made of flames. Fuego's parents ran over and hugged him tightly. The captain returned, turning his head to his siblings and giving them a nod. His sister smirked back, while his brother grinned at him. The captain's eyes focused on the last person there. They widened in surprise. He broke the hug with his parents and walked over to the blonde, wearing an emotionless expression on his face. When he got close, he punched the blonde, throwing him onto his back. He then reached his hand down to help the blonde back to his feet. The captain of the Crimson Lions took his hand and helped him to his feet, then pulled the blonde into a hug. "Welcome back. It has been too long, my brother," Fugolian said with a happy smile as he saw his friend return. "It's good to be back, Captain," the blonde replied happily, relieved that his captain didn't seem too angry about what he had done with his sister. "If you two girls are done making up," Mereoleona scoffed, "we have a job to do." Fugolian leapt away from his vice-captain and approached his sister. They stared at each other before bumping their fists together. It was a way they showed the respect and love they had for each other. He turned to his little brother and rubbed his head in a show of affection. "I would love to catch up, but as my sister said, we should be going now," the Crimson Lion captain said, his face turning serious. "Yes, sir. Let's get to work," the blonde replied, ready for battle. "Let's go teach those bastards a lesson for messing with the Clover Kingdom," Leopold exclaimed excitedly. The trio left the Vermilion Mansion with Lady and Lord Vermilion holding the twin girls, while they waved and shouted encouraging words for the parents and uncles. Chapter 5, Word Devil. On the way to the Clover capital, the team of 2 Crimson Lions encountered a group of Black Bull members as they made their way to the Shadow Palace to confront the reincarnated elves. Fugolian and Leopold had headed for the Crimson Lions Guild to check on their fellow members, and they would meet up with the duo later. The two traveled in awkward silence until they reunited with some other royal knights. At the Clover Castle, there were elves attacking some of the remaining Black Bulls. Mereoleona swiftly dealt with them, but more appeared. They met up with Mimosa Vermilion, Noel, Asta, and Kirsch Vermilion. They have been fighting some reincarnated elves in the capital. They decided to split up due to more elves appearing, so the majority of the Black Bulls and Kirsch stayed back to battle them. Naruto went with Mereoleona and Mimosa, while Nozel carried Asta and Noel with him into the Shadow Palace. Naruto was informed that the Wizard King had been killed by the leader of the Midnight Suns, much to his shock and anger. While the Illusion Mage had his suspicions about Julius, he didn't know how to feel about his death. On one hand, Julius was a great Wizard King who seemed to care for everyone, but if he was a double agent, then it was better he was dead. The blonde guessed the Wizard King must have been killed while he was at the Vermilion estate, so whoever attacked him must have waited until he left before attacking. They also reported that they got into multiple battles with the elf-possessed mages, and somehow the anti-magic using Black Bull named Asta was able to undo the reincarnation spell, making him very important in their efforts to defeat the enemy. As they were traveling through the Shadow Palace gate, they lost control of the magic, causing them to fall in separate. Inside Shadow Palace, when Naruto came to, he felt a powerful magical presence in front of him. He looked and saw a man with a ridiculous hairstyle that resembled horns. The blonde recognized him to be Kaiser, the Magic Knight captain of the Purple Orca. If he remembered correctly, he used vortex magic, which was super effective against most offensive magic, granting him an ultimate defense. The blonde smiled because his illusion magic was the worst matchup for Kaiser. The blonde's magic isn't inherently offensive, but in its weakest form, it affects one's mental state, allowing him to fool Kaiser and attack when his guard is down. "So you came, filthy human," the leader of the Purple Orca said with a calm voice that was filled with hatred. "Lord Kaiser, you look different. Did you do something with your hair?" the blonde illusion magic user said jokingly. "Make all the jokes you want," the elven-possessed captain said as he summoned a vortex around himself that was expanding quickly to attack the blonde. A vortex of wind struck Naruto and sent him flying into a wall, causing him to start bleeding. The captain of the Purple Orca approached the illusion mage and lowered his own vortex, seeing how injured the blonde was. "Serves you right, human," the possessed elf said as he used his vortex magic to spin the air around him, creating a drill to impale the blonde. "Now die, you insect." "My, I'm feeling a lot of hate," a voice said behind Kaiser before he felt a sharp pain across his back and his blood flew into the air. The elf-possessed Kaiser fell to the ground as blood spilled from his back and some from his mouth. He was able to look back to see the blonde human unharmed, with his katana dripping with his blood. He then glanced at the blonde that was in the wall, only to find that it was beginning to disappear. "You damned human, you fooled me!" Kaiser yelled in rage as the blonde approached him. "You will die here, human!" You hear me? You will die. Yeah. Now it's time for you to take a nap, the blonde said lazily as he raised his foot and brought it down on the possessed human, knocking him out. Now what to do? I can go to the closest magic signature and help them out, or I can try to find my baby mama and give her a hand, even though I'm sure she doesn't need or want it. Naruto pondered to himself jokingly about Mereoleona. Suddenly, the blonde felt a familiar magical pressure from a devil, causing the two beings within him to awaken. I feel the presence of a high-class devil. A small black being appeared on his right shoulder with ice blue eyes stated. This is getting interesting. Another black-skinned being with fire-red eyes appeared on his left shoulder and asked, What are you going to do, master? The blonde pondered the question for a moment before replying. I will go to where Mereoleona is for now, as we can defeat the devil that appeared in an instant and things get out of hand. There is also the death of Julius that is bothering me, but I can't put my finger on it. For now, we will stay in the background and only assist anyone who needs help. But that's boring, the devil on his right shoulder said. When are you going to use our power? I will use it, the blonde replied. When I face a powerful opponent I can't defeat on my own. There isn't anyone who can challenge you when you get serious, the devil on his left shoulder stated. Especially when you use that spell. Naruto smirks at the mention of that specific spell. He used it to defeat the two devils on his shoulders and make them his bitches. He didn't feel guilty about it though, because they were evil devils who took joy in the suffering of others, unlike Kurama, who was misunderstood. I think I will be needing your powers soon, he replied. I have a gut feeling that I am going to be facing some really powerful beings in the future. The two devils looked doubtful, but didn't say anything as the blonde took off with great speed towards where he felt Mereoleona was with the purple orca captain on his shoulder. He had felt the fierce lioness defeat her opponent minutes after he himself had defeated his own. He boosted his speed even further with more magic and made it to where Mereoleona was. She was standing over the body of a man who looked more like a beast. The blonde jumped down beside her and had to duck as she fired a punch at his face. Stop it! You crazy woman! Naruto shouted at the female Vermilion for her surprise attack. Oh, it's you, she said. What are you doing here? She inquired. Shouldn't you be heading for the mysterious foul magic up above? He replied. I just came to check up on you. I'm no damsel in distress. Mereoleona declared, pissed at the blonde for treating her like she was weak. We are going to have a serious talk after this is over. The blonde looked confused as to why she was so angry at him for just checking up on her after coming out of a life or death battle. He sighed to himself and went over to the downed elf-possessed wild man, putting him over his other shoulder while adjusting Kaiser on the other. The pair wordlessly jumped through a narrow passageway to where they felt the otherworldly magic that Naruto knew was devil magic. As they got closer, the blonde felt the devil's magic increasing, and when he looked up, he saw the passageway filling with otherworldly creatures. Mereoleona attacked them, but they absorbed her magic, and when she came into contact with it, she got injured and her life force started draining. The blonde, seeing that they were going to get overtaken by those life force and magic-absorbing creatures, summoned a fraction of his devil fire when Mereoleona was distracted attacking the beings. He launched a powerful fire dragon up through the creatures, destroying them and creating a path to the top floor. Naruto quickly grabbed the Vermilion Lioness and carried her to the top floor before more creatures could take the place of the ones he had destroyed. On the top floor, the blonde saw the devil that had been attacking everyone, and to his surprise, the first Wizard King was there, but he looked like he was made of stone, and at his side was an elf with a sword, and a girl with horns. Also battling against the devil was Asta, and another boy who looked to be elf-possessed using wind magic. The blonde found a somewhat safe place and put everyone down. His entrance caught the attention of everyone present as the fire from his devil magic was still burning, spreading to anyone who touched them. Who the hell are you, and how do you have devil magic? The word devil shouted in surprise, causing everyone to pause at his words. What are you talking about? The blonde replied. The only devil here is you. Don't fuck with me, the devil yelled. That's devil magic of the highest level. Did you say something? Was Naruto's only reply, making everyone sweat drop as they watched the exchange. Keep your secrets and die human, the devil said, tired of the humans' games. He ordered all of his creatures to attack the blonde. The otherworldly creatures soon covered the blonde and her companions, making the devil laugh in satisfaction. But it soon came to a stop when he felt two swords piercing his body. The devil's eyes blinked, and like a cloud being lifted, he could see the anti-magic brat and wind magic elf brat, both of them with their swords piercing through his chest, effectively killing him before he even realized what was happening. How could this have happened? The devil asked as he was fading into nothingness. Then he remembered the blonde who was grinning at him. Curse you, you devil! Why, thank you, sir, the blonde replied in a cheeky tone, causing everyone to sweat drop. You said the nicest things, so now you can die like the loser you are. The devil's words faded as he cursed the blonde and the two boys that killed him. The whole time Mereoleona remained quiet, staring at the blonde, but he ignored her. The blonde had caught the word devil in a powerful illusion since they entered the room. To the devil everything seemed normal, but to everyone else it was like he froze. Naruto ordered Asta and the elf boy to pierce the devil's heart while it was unable to move. Naruto realized the word devil only broke his illusion magic when Asta's anti-magic entered his system, but it was already too late. Asta would become a powerful magic knight in the future, one that many magic users would never be able to defeat. His only weaknesses were physical attacks and natural phenomena. However, the blonde had come up with a way to combat him should the need ever arise. The word devil had disappeared, but his magical creatures remained. The blonde thought he might have to use his devil magic to protect everyone, but a mage using teleportation magic appeared, rescuing everyone. Out Shadow Palace, Clover capital. With everyone outside, the leader of the elves released the reincarnation spell, and almost all the elves returned to the afterlife, except for a few whose hosts were already dead. With everything resolved, Naruto decided to go back to the Crimson Lion Guild and get some rest. But Mereoleona caught his hand before he could leave. She motioned her head for him to follow her. He knew he couldn't just leave, so he sighed and followed her. He followed her away from everyone to a clearing. She turned to him before speaking. What was that fire magic you used back there that destroyed those creatures? My fire magic couldn't do that. The blonde pondered on how to answer her questions. He could lie to her and say it was a type of illusion magic, or he could tell the truth. Both options had their pros and cons. After thinking it over, the blonde came to a decision. Chapter 6, Devils of Ice and Fire, Clover capital. After the battle with the word soul devil, Mereoleona pulled the blonde illusion magic user aside to ask him about the powerful fire magic he used to destroy the word devil's summoned creatures. Naruto was debating whether to tell her the truth or to make up a lie. He decided to tell her the truth because his secret would come out sooner or later, and he preferred she heard it from him rather than someone else. With his mind made up, Naruto opened his mouth to speak. I will tell you about the fire magic you saw later, the blonde said. When exactly are you going to tell me? Mereoleona asked, raising an eyebrow. You disappeared and came back with fire magic powerful enough to destroy otherworldly creatures. My fire magic couldn't. I will tell you at the Vermilion Estate when I come by to visit the girls, the blonde replied. I know you want to know what I did, but we have more important things to do. Fine, she said. But don't run away again, because I will find you. I won't run away, the blonde replied. I promise I will explain everything later. The two separated. Naruto went to help anyone who needed first aid, or he brought them to a medic with healing magic if they were badly injured. The blonde returned to the Crimson Lions Guild only to find out that it had been attacked, but it didn't seem like anyone was hurt. Fugolian and Leopold had already defeated the reincarnated elves. The guild members were surprised to see their former vice-captain after so many years, namely the new vice-captain Randall Luftair, who had been appointed by Fugolian reluctantly after the blonde had been absent for years. Naruto didn't really know how to feel about being replaced, but he guessed it was his own fault for leaving for so long. Long time no see, the blonde said laughing as he rubbed the back of his head. It's good to see that you're all okay. This snapped the Crimson Lions out of their shock, and they returned the greeting, going over to the blonde and shaking his hand and nodding in his direction. After reuniting with her guild mates, the blonde went to Fugolian's office accompanied by Randall to inform him of the events that had transpired at the Clover capital. Fugolian office. Naruto and Randall stood ardently in front of the Crimson Lions leader, waiting for him to say something about who would be the vice-captain. Look, I don't want to cause any trouble with the Crimson Lions, so I don't mind not being the vice-captain, the blonde said after thinking. It's not that simple. The vice-captain is the second in command and will be in charge if the captain is unavailable. You must have power and the trust of the Crimson Lions, the captain said. Naruto, while you lost the trust of a lot of the Crimson Lions, you are a powerful magic knight. That is the issue. Fugolian paused. The weak cannot lead the strong, so you two will battle for the title. I don't want to just come back and take the title away from someone who has been doing a good job, the blonde said. So you think the title is already yours? Randall shouted. That I don't stand a chance of winning. Well, yes, I am stronger than you are, Naruto said as he was talking about the weather. Randall turned to the captain and spoke. Captain, I accept this challenge and will gladly put this miscreant in his place, Randall said before marching out. Did you have to rile him up so much? Fugolian asked, looking at the blonde. I was just testing to see what kind of person you replaced me with, Naruto replied. Sigh, said the captain. I had to replace you because you didn't tell anyone where you were going or for how long. Yeah, I know it's my fault, but I'm still going to kick your new vice captain's ass. The blonde replied with a cheerful smile. Do what you want, Fugolian said. But if you disappear on my sister or nieces again, I will never forgive you. He finished with a fierce look that reminded the blonde of a certain baby mama. I won't, the blonde replied. So when do I get to kick your vice captain ass? The captain said with a flat look. You're having too much fun with this, he continued. My sister sent me a message to send you over to the Vermilion Manor ASAP. After you finish whatever business you have with her, I'll be setting up the duel. The blonde didn't reply immediately. He turned to walk to the door and was about to leave, but hesitated. Captain, if I find out some information that I am not 100% sure is true, but if it is, it might spell the doom of the Clover Kingdom and the world as we know it. What would you do? Fugolian looked confused by what was said but tried to make the most sense of it. I think you should tell me everything you've discovered and we can go from there. I will tell you everything I found out, but after I deal with your crazy sister, it will give me time to gather my thoughts. Naruto replied. But if my suspicions are correct, the Wizard King isn't as dead as we think. Fugolian looked even more confused. The Wizard King had been confirmed to have been killed by the leader of the Eye of the Midnight Sun, but if he somehow managed to survive that would be good news, but the way the blonde said it made it sound like a bad omen. The captain of the Crimson Lion nodded, knowing how stubborn the blonde can be, so he gave up on trying to get him to talk about what he found. He would tell him later anyway. Naruto swiftly made his way to the Vermilion Estate, hoping the lioness was in a good mood. Vermilion Estate. When Naruto arrived at the Vermilion Estate, he was surprised to find Mereoleona and the twins playing outside. By playing, he meant the twins were attacking their mother with everything they had: fists, fireballs, and various fire spells. It seemed they took after their mother more than him. He watched Mereoleona smiling as she dodged and caught the attacks effortlessly. The twins were very powerful for their age and didn't have grimoires. His little girls must have seen him because they broke off from attacking their mother and yelled, "Daddy!" They jumped on the blonde. It seemed as if the twin girls were still excited about having their father around. Naruto hugged them to himself and greeted them along with their mother. Mereoleona watched as the twins eagerly chatted with their father, asking him questions about his adventures. Soon enough, hours had passed, and they both started to drift off to sleep, still clutching the blonde tightly. The blonde looked up at the sky. It was sunset, so he guessed it was their bedtime. Naruto walked over to Mereoleona and was about to hand her daughters to her, but she just gestured her head in a follow-me motion as she walked back to the Vermilion Estate. Inside, she led him to the girls' shared bedroom. It was quite large, with toys and different animal hides and skulls, making him gain a blank. He was sure Mereoleona was responsible for this, but he kept his mouth closed. Mereoleona took the girls from the blonde and took them to the bathroom inside the room and gave them a quick bath. She put on clean new clothes on them and placed them in bed, placing a kiss on each of their foreheads. Naruto watched all this and was surprised by the love and tenderness that the lioness was showing. He guessed that motherhood had really changed her. She then pushed him out of the room, using her magic to form a claw and dragging the blonde back outside, far into the forest surrounding the Vermilion Mansion. She dropped him as she leaned her back against a tree, staring intensely at the blonde. "Talk," Mereoleona ordered, leaving no room for any excuses or lies. The blonde met the lioness's gaze before he looked away and sighed. He then sat himself down on a nearby log. "I guess I'll start with the origin of the flames," the blonde stated. "The power to use those spells comes from a devil named Nahama, who uses fire magic, and I also have the power of Lilith, who is ice magic," Naruto said, as he watched Mereoleona's eyes widen before she asked him a question that was obviously bothering her. "How do you get their power?" "I doubt they just handed it to you," the lioness stated. "You are correct. I had someone perform a devil summoning ritual and defeat the two devils, then take their powers for myself," the blonde replied shockingly to Mereoleona because from what she saw, devils were extremely powerful. Her strongest spells never even fazed them. However, the blonde's fire magic was able to destroy the devil's spell entirely. Now the blonde said he had defeated two of them with his illusion magic. Something wasn't adding up, so she walked right up to the blonde and stared at him in the eyes, looking for any deception, but found none. She threw a fire-infused punch at the blonde, but he caught it with his hand. He was not getting burned at all. Suddenly, her fire started to freeze, surprising her for a second before she jumped back and examined her frozen hand. As she did this, she noticed two black creatures appearing on her shoulders. One had crimson red eyes, and the other had deep blue ones. Mereoleona focused her flames onto her hand and melted the ice. Now it was Naruto's turn to be surprised. Although he hadn't made the ice as strong as it should have been, still it was demon ice magic she melted. It showed how much potential she had to grow stronger. The blonde raised his hands in surrender. Look, I didn't come here to fight. If that is all that you wanted to know, I will take my leave. So you're running away again, was? The vermilion-haired woman said. Naruto said. I'm not running away. He continued. I am just not interested in fighting you. And why not? Are you afraid of losing to me? Mereoleona replied with a wide grin. You haven't beaten me once since we've known each other. The blonde stated. What makes you think it will change now that I'm stronger than ever? Mereoleona gave a savage grin upon hearing that. Naruto knew there wasn't any talking her out of fighting him now. Her mana exploded out of her and began burning everything around her. The blonde gave a faint smile. It seemed she didn't really care how he had gained this new power. She was more interested in testing her power against his own. Naruto had to dodge a fist of fire thrown at him as he jumped and weaved through all of her powerful attacks. She looked at her to see the level of control she had over her power. It wouldn't be inaccurate to say she became one with the mana in and around her. Naruto sighed. He guessed the more things change, the more they stay the same. Naruto took a stance and got ready for battle. The blonde charged forward, meeting the crownless lioness in an exchange of blows. After battle. The battle was over and Mereoleona lay on the ground, panting, unable to get up. She had lost all of her clothes during the battle, whether through her own power or the blonde's attack. She looked at Naruto, who stood there, looking fine uninjured. Naruto didn't even use the devil's power. He showed her what his illusion magic could really do. His ultimate spell blurred the boundaries of reality and illusion. He made her fire magic become an illusion, and all his illusions became real. No matter what she did, she couldn't do him any damage because he would make himself into a living illusion, and she would pass right through him. Ultimately, she was defeated soundly, and the blonde didn't even use his full power. She sighed and tried to get up, but failed. Naruto saw her in an immobile state, picked her up bridal style to her protest, but she didn't have the strength to resist, so Naruto carried her back to Vermilion Manor bare-skinned and defeated. As the blonde's mind was on the bare-skinned woman in his arms, she was fit and tight in all the right places with large tits and butt, and when she was on the ground defeated, he saw her tight little meow that looked like it was never used, but he knew better. He got an erection thinking about it but tried to fight it down, while Mereoleona on her part didn't know how to feel. She was being carried by the blonde who had just defeated her in battle, which made her so horny, but she was still angry at him for abandoning her after taking her virginity. Naruto sneaked back into the mansion, dodging servants and the lord and lady of the estate. He didn't want to be asked why he was carrying their daughter bare-skinned. Mereoleona instructed him where to take her. Mereoleona's room. The room was empty, just as the blonde had suspected. She hadn't spent much time here. He dropped her on the bed and turned to leave when Mereoleona's hand shot up, catching his wrist and pulling him down onto the bed on top of her. The blonde was now on top of the bare-skinned lioness. She had a hooded look in her eyes that the blonde immediately knew what had happened. She must have been turned on by the battle and possibly even her defeat. Naruto didn't know what he should do, but the choice was taken from him as Mereoleona's lips crashed onto his, the blonde already aroused kissing her back while his hand went to her watermelons. Lemon warning. The blonde felt her bite his lip and pulled away, seeing she had a grin on her face, pissing him off. The blonde growled, causing the fierce lioness's loins to tingle. Getting up, the blonde then ripped his clothes off, leaving him bare-skinned with his shaft fully exposed. Mereoleona observed his banana stick grow larger. She gave the blonde a naughty looks. What the hell is wrong with you? You led me on and then bit me, the blonde exclaimed. I'm not that easy, and if you want anything from me, you'll have to take it, the vermilion-haired woman stated. Fine, that's the way you want it. I'm going to tame you and put a leash on you for everyone to see, the blonde replied before stalking over to her. Big words, blonde, but I doubt a coward like you could back them up, Mereoleona said, but there was only silence when the blonde claimed her lips this time, with a dominance she didn't feel before. He captured her tongue and lips, making her murmur. His hand went to her cunt and slid a finger inside. He felt her soaked slit and hole. His other hand was pinching and pulling her erect nipples, not too gently. The blonde, finally tired of the foreplay, got up and flipped Mereoleona onto her hands and knees. Not giving her a chance to complain, he slammed his banana stick all the way into her, making her give a loud murmur that he was sure her parents could hear. But he didn't care, he had a lioness to break in. Naruto had to stay still to keep from coming from the intense tightness, and heat coming from her wet meow. He was balls deep with his sacks hitting her flower juice. The vermilion woman for her part had all the air knocked out of her lungs from the penetration. The blonde definitely was bigger than she remembered. She started to move. It felt like he was trying to rip her apart and rearrange her insides for his own personal use. The lioness had to admit, after the blonde took her virginity and left her pregnant, it hurt her more than she thought it would. She didn't even consider getting into another relationship or having naughty stuff with anyone else. The only man who was allowed to plow her hole was the man who she could never defeat, and he was fucking her meow like he owned it. Watching her but ripple after every thrust he made, the blonde grows even bigger in the woman. He would never know she had given birth to twins from the good shape her body was in, and how tight her meow is. By this point Mereoleona was murmuring and groaning from every thrust the blonde made. The way the blonde was moving she knew the idiot was going to come in her, and she was too lost in the pleasure of mating to care. She felt the blonde pull out and flip her onto her back before driving back into her. This time he had her hand over her head with his right hand holding her wrist to keep her hands in place. The bed was protected from the intense fuck the blonde was giving the lioness as she pounded his banana stick into her tight little hole, while he watched her face contort in pleasure with loud murmurs leaving her mouth. They looked into each other's eyes in a battle of wills, making the blonde increase the speed and force of his thrust, making Mereoleona break eye contact to throw her head back and murmur, making Naruto smirk in victory. "Tell me who owns you," the blonde ordered as Mereoleona glowered at him, and faltered when he gave her a particularly hard thrust for her attitude. "I asked you a question, who owns your slutty meow butt and tits?" The blonde asked her again, without stopping fucking her for a second. The vermilion-haired woman refused to reply, causing the blonde to give her an evil look and smirk. "I wanted to do this the easy way," he said, "but I see now you are too stubborn for that, so it's only right I discipline you for it." The blonde then trapped her in an illusion that for every minute in the real world felt like an hour in the illusion. He fucked her non-stop and summoned clones, each taking turns drilling her hole. When the illusion broke, Mereoleona let out a loud scream as her love juices squirted out, wetting her bed and lover. The blonde used his free hand to grab her hair and asked her again, "Who do you belong to, you little slut?" The blonde asked her. Her reply was utter silence. "Well, if you don't want to say anything, I'll just find someone who will," the blonde said as he began to pull away. However, he was stopped by Mereoleona as she wrapped her leg around his waist. "What are you doing, you crazy woman? You refuse to answer me. What do you expect me to do about you if you wouldn't submit?" Naruto yelled. "I belong to you," Leona whispered in a low voice. "I didn't hear you. Who does this slut belong to?" Naruto asked. "You own my meow, ass, and mouth. They have always belonged to you," the lioness declared. "Good girl," the blonde said as he claimed her lips and drilled his banana stick into her cunt, indented the shape of her, but into the mattress. The blonde felt his balls tighten as he felt Mereoleona's meow grip his shaft with a grunt. They were fucking each other now. He finally came as she sprayed her meow juice on him yet again. They stayed connected as the blonde laid down on top of her between her legs, still in an intense make-out session. The next morning, Naruto woke up feeling his shaft surrounded by something tight and hot. When he moved his hand, he realized he was gripping something firm yet soft, and he also felt 2 large bumps on his chest. Slowly opening his eyes, he was met with the sight of a sleeping, bare-skinned Mereoleona on top of him. Then the memories of the night before came back to him. The blonde sighed, knowing their relationship was complicated to say the least, and that he was involved with other women. He wasn't sure how she would take it, but he would cross that bridge when he came to it. For now, he would enjoy the feeling of having her on top of him. Mereoleona woke up feeling a hard banana stick in her sore cunt, while her butt was being played with and a hard chest pressed against her bountiful teats. She was about to vaporize the bastard who dared defile her, but she met the blue eyes of her children's father, and the memories of last night came back. Naruto watched as Mereoleona actually blushed and hid her head in embarrassment. She looked cute, but their alone time was interrupted by the door to her room bursting open with their 2 girls running in, making them freeze. The girls stopped seeing their parents in bed together, thankfully with a sheet covering their bare-skinned bodies. The situation got even worse when Lady and Lord Vermilion walked in and froze upon seeing them. Lady Vermilion regained her senses first and ushered the twins and her husband out, slamming the door behind her. The blonde man and vermilion-haired woman looked at each other, dreading having to get out of bed and explain everything, especially to their innocent daughters. Chapter 7, Awkward. Vermilion Estate. It was early morning in the dining room of the Vermilion Mansion. Servants were serving the family breakfast. At the head of the table was Lord Vermilion, and to his right was the lady of the house. To his left was Fugolian, and next to him was his little brother Leopold. Mereoleona was seated next to Lady Vermilion, and next to her were the twins. Finally, his seat was beside them, making them sit between their parents. The entire room was silent except for the servants moving around and the twins chatting and giggling. It was all so awkward. Leopold was glaring at the blonde, while Fugolian had an emotionless face as they both entered the room and were told of what had happened between the blonde and their sister. Lord and Lady Vermilion were simply eating their breakfast with a resigned look, having given up on the matter altogether. Everyone was finished eating when Lord Vermilion excused everyone aside from the blonde and her daughter. They made their sons leave with their granddaughters, so they wouldn't hear what they were about to say. "So, are you two together now?" Lady Vermilion asked, getting right to the point. Naruto opened his mouth to respond, but Mereoleona beat him to it. "No, we are not together," she said. "What happened was a mistake. I would presume you used protection when you were intimate," Lord Vermilion said, but hissed in disgust when he saw the expression on her daughter's face. "You know you make it hard to believe you're not together when you only have naughty stuff with one person and let him come inside you with impunity," Lady Vermilion stated. "What if you get pregnant again?" "If I get pregnant, I will have the baby and raise it on my own," the daughter of the Vermilion house said. "I will help her if she becomes pregnant," said Naruto. "Sigh," Lord Vermilion said before turning to the blonde. "Do you have any idea how much the image of the House Vermilion has been dragged through the mud by the other noble houses for having an unwed daughter who got pregnant with the child of a commoner?" The blonde had a bored look on his face. What did he care if Lord and Lady Vermilion were the laughing stock of their noble circle? While his captain, their son, was his friend, he couldn't bring himself to care about some nobles not getting invited to dinner parties or social gatherings. "There were even attempts on Mereoleona's life when she was pregnant," Lord Vermilion said, but stopped when he felt a strong force of magical power, unlike anything he had ever felt before. The force left him unable to breathe, and his wife was not any better off. "Who?" Naruto demanded as his magic flowed out of him. "Who sent assassins after her?" The blonde's words were cut short as he was slapped in the back of the head by Mereoleona, sending his head crashing into the table and onto the floor. "What was that for, you crazy woman?" Naruto yelled from the ground, clearly irritated. "Are you trying to destroy my house and kill my parents? You idiot!" the lioness shouted back. The blonde looked around at the ruined room, with the walls, floor, and ceiling cracked from his power. Lord and Lady Vermilion looked as if they had seen death itself and barely escaped it. The blonde got up completely unharmed and said, "Sorry for the mess, but if you give me the names of all those involved in this attack, I will take care of it," the blonde said calmly, his eyes cold as ice, making the heads of the house realize the blonde was really dangerous. The blonde was hit on the head again, but this time he barely moved. "What is it this time?" Naruto asked while still waiting for their names. "That's my line," Mereoleona said with a scowl. "I am not a damsel in distress. I handled the attacker and found the ones who hired them myself. And I assume you made them regret their poor life choices," the blonde said calmly after hearing the daughter of the Vermilion house handle the situation. "Do you have to ask? I burned them to ash and shattered them to the winds," the vermilion-haired woman replied with a bloodthirsty grin. "Good," the illusion mage said before turning back to Lord and Lady Vermilion. "Sorry for interrupting. You were saying something." The Lord and Lady of the house at this moment realized fully why their daughter had chosen to sleep with and bear the blonde's children. It was more or less a kind of animalistic attraction between an alpha female and an alpha male. Thinking about it made their heads hurt. They were a pair of bloodthirsty, powerful, and ruthless maniacs. On the bright side, the future of their family was ensured, even if they died from stress before seeing it come to pass. They watched the pair bicker as their sons Fugolian and Leopold rushed back into the room to see what had caused the massive surge of magic power they just felt. Lord and Lady Vermilion had just walked out of the room and decided to retire for the day, even though it was morning. They were far too old to deal with this shit. Crimson Lion's base. After leaving the Vermilion estate, the blonde had a few lumps on his head from his captain and his sister for scaring their parents like he did before he left. He talked to the twins and promised to visit them soon with some presents. He even snuck in a kiss with Mereoleona before running away as she gave chase. The twin giggled at that and cheered him on as his captain shook his head. Now back to the present, he would be facing Randall Luftair, the man who had replaced him as vice captain while he was away. The man didn't seem like a bad guy, but the blonde would need the position to gain access to the Wizard King in an official manner, so he could keep an eye on him. Naruto stood on the training grounds, across from Randall, while Captain Fugolian served as the referee. The rest of the Crimson Lion members were also present. Naruto had heard that Randall specialized in air magic, which was a versatile type of magic for both offense and defense. "We are here to witness the duel between former Vice Captain Naruto Uzumaki and Vice Captain Randall Luftair for the title of Vice Captain of the Crimson Lions," Fugolian announced. "Now, are the fighters ready?" he asked, receiving a nod from both fighters. "Now, let the duel begin." Naruto and Randall squared off against each other and charged at one another, Randall thought. As soon as the battle started, Naruto put him in an illusion where the air mage thought he and the blonde were having an epic battle, but in reality, he was on the ground making a fool out of himself. Those around him looked around uncomfortably. The winner and new vice captain, Naruto Uzumaki. Captain Fugolian said awkwardly as he looked at Randall on the ground, who was making noises and movements like he was still fighting. Well, that's that, Naruto said as some of the other Crimson Lion members took Randall away. Captain, there is something I have to talk to you about. Fugolian saw Naruto's serious expression motioning for him to come to his office. When they arrived, Naruto told his captain about his devil powers and what he found out about in the Spade Kingdom, as well as his suspicions regarding the Wizard King. After all was said and done, the captain was floored by all the revelations. He gathered his thoughts quickly and just ordered the blonde to keep what she knew quiet for now, but still they had to come up with a contingency plan just in case. They parted ways, and Naruto began thinking about a plan to fight the Wizard King if he's a sleeper agent. He knew he would need to recruit Mereoleona, as difficult as she can be. She is powerful. He will have to think of some other people, but for now, he will take it easy. He will treat the Wizard King as he normally does. Chapter 8. Forming the Team. Clover Palace. Naruto was just done talking to the seemingly weakened Wizard King, who was now a small child. Naruto still had his suspicions about him, but he just played it cool when he met up with Julius. He managed to convince the Time Magician to let him form his own elite group who would protect the Clover Kingdom from both external and internal threats. It would be something like Umbu from his life as a ninja. Now all the blonde had to do was find some capable mages and train them up to his standards. He would need some heavy hitters, some healers, and some support mages. He knew where to get the heavy hitters, but healers he had no idea, so he figured he had to go see Mereoleona anyway to see if she was interested in joining. She might know where to find a healer or two, but first he had to find some gifts for his baby girls, as he made a promise to get them some presents when he came to see them again. As Naruto was buying some toys, his mind went back to a memory he had with one of his old friends whom he thought of as a little sister. She could be classified as a heavy hitter and a healer. He smiled, knowing she would be surprised to see him since it had been so long. After all, she had told him she was moving to a small village in the Forsaken Realm, and that was the last time he had heard from her. Hage Village. The blonde looked around the village and asked some of the people if they knew his friend after he told them her name and description. They pointed out a church that was an orphanage, which didn't surprise the blonde because he knew his friend had become a nun. On his way to the church, the blonde started to remember how he met Lily Aquaria, a former noblewoman who cared deeply about the discrimination that the common people faced at the hands of the nobility to the point she gave up her status and became a nun. Flashback. A young woman with black hair stood protectively in front of a young couple, a skinny young man and a beautiful red-haired woman. They were being harassed by two noblemen attempting to take the woman for themselves. Her boyfriend intervened and was attacked by their magical powers. Lily saw this and quickly came to the couple's defense. However, the two men attacked her. She was able to hold her own, but she was slowly being overwhelmed. Lily looked around to see if anyone would help her, but all she saw were the nobles looking at her with disgust for trying to protect peasants. The commoners' faces had a look of guilt on them, turned away from her, as they were afraid to get involved. Lily had a look of despair on her face. It seemed as if things were hopeless. This world had no hope. The nobility would always look down on the peasants, making their lives miserable, and the peasants were powerless to do anything about it. Hey, what do you think you're doing? A voice cut through the despair the female noble was feeling. Lily looked up to find a young man with blonde hair, wearing the uniform of the Crimson Lions Guild, which made him a magical knight. We are just putting some commoners in their place, one of the noblemen replied, causing the blonde to raise an eyebrow. And what place is that? Naruto asked with an even tone and his eyes narrowing. Their place is at our feet. We are nobility, and they dare to defy us, so they must be punished, the other nobleman stated, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Naruto looked past the two idiotic nobles and saw a beautiful dark-haired, blue-eyed young woman standing in front of a man and a woman, protected by her water magic. He could see the woman had a pleading look in her eyes, as if she were begging for help. The blonde smiled gently at her before turning his attention back to the two aggressors. Naruto said, I think you two had your fun already. He added, it's time for you to go. What? Who are you to tell us what to do? The nobleman shouted. Yeah, we are nobility. No one can tell us what to do. The second nobleman said, I am Naruto Uzumaki, a member of the Crimson Lions. The blonde declared hopefully that with that they would back down, but it seems they were stupider than he thought. You are that commoner that was allowed into the Magic Knight squad, the noble said as he recognized the name. I was there when you got selected for the Crimson Lion instead of me, the noble said in rage, preparing a spell to attack with his friend doing the same. Suddenly, the two started to sway on their feet as their eyes grew heavy, and they fell to the ground in a deep sleep, snoring loudly, making the other nobles around them mock them as disgraces to their stations. Naruto was happy that the two nobles were so weak-minded because it allowed his weakest spell to put them to sleep. Naruto walked over to the people he had just rescued and watched as the woman with a 3-leaf grimoire healed the injured young man. Not long after the couple had departed, but not before thanking their saviors, making the woman blush and Naruto grinning at them. With Naruto alone with the young woman, he turned to introduce himself to her, but she beat him to it. "Thank you so much for saving us," the dark-haired woman said while bowing her head. "My name is Lily Aquaria, and I will pay you back for what you did today." "It was nothing," Naruto replied. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki, by the way." Naruto watched the humble noblewoman, and he had to say, she surprised him with her words and her actions. She was kind and brave, standing up for the sake of the commoners. Flashback end. From that day on, the blonde became good friends with the dark-haired woman, and they grew close, even after she had left her noble status behind and become a nun, determined to help as many commoners as possible. The blonde saw a church with children playing in front. They must have seen him because they ran inside, and out came an old man priest and a woman in a nun's outfit. "It's been a long time since I last saw you, Lily," said Naruto. "It's good to see you again." Lily took a while to move, as she did believe her usually busy friend had come to see her, but when she got back her senses she ran up and gave him a hug, which he returned. The nun said, "Where have you been? You haven't written to me in years, and every time I wrote to you, the letter was returned because they couldn't find you." Naruto said, "I was on a top-secret mission in another country for the past few years." He apologized and added, "I'm sorry for making you worry." "So you were on a mission. I guess it couldn't be helped, but please give me a warning the next time you have to disappear. I honestly thought you were dead," Lily said in a sad voice, making Naruto feel guilty. "Hello, young man. My name is Orsi Orphai. I apologize for interrupting, but I was wondering who you are and how you know Sister Lily," the old priest asked. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki, the vice captain of the Crimson Lion," he said. "Lily and I are friends." The blonde looked around as the children he had seen earlier came back out with some more children following, and they were all staring at him in awe. "Is it true? Are you really the vice captain of a magical squad, and you're friends with Sister Lily?" one of the young orphans asked. "Yes to both questions. I guess you heard my name. What are all of your names?" Naruto answered the orphan's question and asked one of his own. "My name is Nash, this is Rixa, and that's Aruru," the boy said while pointing at each girl. "And that's Hollow," he added, pointing at the only other boy. "Okay, that's enough, kids. I'm sure that the vice captain of the Crimson Lion has come here to talk with Sister Lily about something important," the old priest stated. "Let's go inside and give them some privacy." Naruto recalled the toys he had bought for his twin daughters. Then he remembered how difficult life was for him as an orphan during his first life. After thinking about it, he decided to give the toys to the orphans. He could always buy more once he left the village. "Catch!" Naruto said as he threw the bag of toys he bought for his kids, but decided to give it to the orphans. Orsi caught the bag and opened it to find the toy inside. He looked at the blonde curiously. "You can give the toys to the children," Naruto said. The old priest was surprised for a moment before the orphans jumped on him and took the bag, running away with it. The old priest chased after them comically. Naruto watched it all with an amused expression, while his sister Lily was embarrassed by their behavior and made the blonde laugh at her expense. "Is there somewhere we can talk in private?" the blonde vice captain asked. Sister Lily nodded and led the blonde to her room, which was plain with just a bed, table, closet, and bathroom. "So this is your room? Have you brought me here to have your wicked way with me?" Naruto joked, making Lily blush. "No, you idiot. You said you wanted to talk in private, and this is the only place I could think of," the nun explained. "I wonder what everyone will think when they find out you seduced a handsome innocent man like me to come into your room so you could have your way with him," Naruto continued, ignoring Lily's explanation. Now it was Lily's turn to be amused. "You innocent," the nun said with a laugh. "When we first met, you were on a date with 2 women at the same time, and then, after you rescued me, they threatened me to stay away from you." Naruto sweated as he heard what she said because it was true. He had been on a date when they met, he left his date to save her, and after a short conversation with the then noblewoman, the 2 women he was on a date with reappeared and grabbed Lily, saying something to her that Naruto couldn't hear. Naruto coughed into his hand awkwardly. "Anyway, I'll get to the point. I am forming an elite team to protect the Clover Kingdom from any future threats, and I want you to be a part of it," he said. "What? Why? I am not strong enough to join an elite team, and I have to take care of these orphans here. I can't do it," Sister replied, refusing. "I am sorry, but I cannot accept your refusal. You can both heal with your magic and use it for offense and defense. You are perfect for the team. I will, of course, train you so there is no need to worry." The blonde stated. I can't do it. I am needed here, Sister Lily said, turning her back to the blonde. Naruto replied. I am sure the priest can take care of things here while you're away, he said. Look, you owe me for saving you, and I am calling in that debt now. Why are you so determined to make me leave the place that has become my home? The nun shouted in frustration, on the verge of tears, making the blonde feel bad, but he pressed on. Because you have the abilities the team will need, and above all else, because you're my friend and I trust you, the blonde replied. Silence fell over the room, as neither of them said anything or moved. Then Sister Lily spoke. I don't have a choice, do I? She asked. No, you do not. I will give you a week to say your goodbyes, Naruto said with an emotionless face. The blonde walked to the door before saying, I will come back in a week. Naruto left the church feeling like shit because he had to get the nun to join his team. He hurried back to the Vermilion Estate, but not before stopping to buy more toys. Vermilion Estate. Naruto lay bare-skinned on Mereoleona's bed, while the woman between his legs sucked his banana stick, which had both their fluids on it clean. The blonde watched as the usually fierce woman was now being submissive and swallowing his hard banana stick, but he guessed after the hard fuck he had just given her she was feeling too good to put up any kind of dominant attitude. Naruto hadn't planned on having naughty stuff with Mereoleona when he arrived here, but after helping her put their children to bed, since they were tired from playing with their new toys, she had led him back to her room, and after that, everything was a blur, and he was balls deep inside of her meow, filling it with his seed. The blonde had informed her of his suspicions about the Wizard King being a sleeper agent for the Spade Kingdom. She took the news in stride, and agreed to join his team and help him come up with a contingency plan should his suspicions prove true. The blonde groaned as he came down the wild woman's throat and mouth. The blonde watched her swallow his cum with loud gulps. After she drank the last of it, she pulled her head back and licked the head of the blonde banana stick affectionately. Naruto pulled her up to him by her hair and claimed her lips in a passionate kiss. Their tongues battled for dominance before they finally broke the kiss. The female Vermilion lay on the blonde's chest as he nibbled and kissed her neck, leaving hickeys on it for everyone to see. So, do you have anyone in mind for the team? Naruto asked, pausing to leave hickeys on his woman. The crownless lioness was enjoying the afterglow of their activities, taking her time before speaking. Mimosa Vermilion, she is a good healer. I will have to think of some others later. Mimosa Vermilion, with her and Lily, we have our healers, the blonde said. Me and you are the heavy hitters, but we will need more people. The blonde paused before speaking again. I'll go to recruit her tomorrow. Do you want to come with me? Naruto didn't get a response, so he looked down at Mereoleona and found her asleep. It seemed he had worn her out. When she was asleep, she looked like a normal woman, and from the way he had been emptying his balls into her, she was probably pregnant, but that was a thought for another day. The blonde let sleep take him, as he could only hope that everything worked out and Julius wasn't a sleeper agent. This chapter ends here. Let me know in the comments what you think of this Naruto and Black Clover crossover experiment. Should I make more videos like this? If you're ready for more, just click on this next video and enjoy the ride.